A series of fires, explosions, and even a plane crash in a various series of links in the food supply chain goes almost completely unnoticed by the mainstream media, but we are going to talk just a bit about what's going on with that, what that means, and where we go from there. In other news, a parachute demo at Nationals Park causes alarm and a Capitol evacuation, and your host to laugh a lot. Nikki Fried sues the Biden administration, effectively putting an end to her campaign, which is also very, very, very funny. So we'll go over some of that here. And the Secret Service is seizing more than $102 million in crypto assets because, hey, it's totally untraceable and you can use it to commit crimes. It is going to be all this and more. You're just mad you can't date me. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. You know, I don't normally open up with my regular Twitter, this is my actual regular Twitter window that I use too. I don't usually open up with something up on the background here, but I thought this was worth talking about over here before we got started. I've been struggling a little bit going back to heavy lifting took a little bit more of a toll on me than I thought it was, and this morning I had such a writer's block. What is going to be a thing I like at the end of the show today? I already had thing that I hate. That was easy, and you're going to see that one. That was thing that I hate, but thing I like I was struggling with. I forgot to change the title card. I forgot to change the title when I got started. This morning has been a mess for me, but I was looking into some stuff here, and I happened to notice, because right before I went live, I got a notification that somebody had made a like to one of my responses here, and this pretty much sums up the mask mandate thing. So this thread, I commented in this thread a couple different places yesterday, actually, because of some of they're letting the mask slip, so to, no pun intended. They're showing you exactly who they are with this and what exactly it is that they want to do with this. Harry Litman, who is a random blue check, tweeted out 13 hours ago. Harry Litman is an LA Times legal affairs columnist, a former U.S. attorney, DOJ official, teaches con law at UCSD and UCLA, lawyer, CC whistleblower, executive producer, host, Talking Feds pod. Somebody you basically just don't want to interact with, essentially. So I'm going to do the interacting with him for you. Warning us all, the 11th Circuit is very conservative. If they vacate the stay, it'll be quite the slapdown for Judge Mizell. I don't know that they're going to. That's the problem. I actually don't know. I'm not going to say that they're not going to. I'm going to say that I don't know. But Adam B. Bear comes back out. He is Democratic Bear, says, instead of one district judge from MDFL, you're potentially giving teeth from the 11th all the way up to the 6-3 SCOTUS, playing with fire. Because that's the thing and that too is part of their messaging too. Hey, remember, it's a 6-3 SCOTUS. It's a 6-3 Supreme Court. We have to rebalance the court. 6-3. And Mitch Hader comes out and says, this is what I've been hearing all day, and I'm not a lawyer, but this is very frightening to me. To which I gave him the suggestion. I said, you could just wear a mask. Wear your mask, if that's what you want to do. And I'm telling you, people, I've seen some people come out and say, yeah, I want to tell you not to wear your mask. I'm going to do this and that in public if I see you in your mask. Dude, leave these idiots alone. They've been brainwashed. They are stupid. leave them alone and let them sit in their delusion. If they get carroty on you, then release the hammer on them, but let them sit in their own delusion. Let them stew in their delusion. Let them see what freedom is actually like when you're allowed to make your own choice. But this guy let the mask slip on this, and again, no pun intended. Oh, I'm not giving up my mask anytime soon, but it's not a one-way proposition. And he's telling you right out. He's telling you who he is. He says, it's not that I want to wear my mask. I am going to force my religious talisman on you. And that's what it is at this point. It's a religious talisman. This would be exactly the same if Christian conservatives from the 90s made it a state law, or a federal law by that matter, or a court mandate that everybody has to wear a cross around their neck, all around, which, given the Bushites of the time, I would not be surprised about by any stretch of the imagination. It's not a one-way proposition. You have to wear it. I'm holy. I got the jab. And I'm still going to wear mine because I'm holy. It's you heathen, that's not going to wear yours. But that was something off of there that I thought you guys would find a little bit of flavor of life at the beginning of the show. Let's get into it, but before we do, head on over, check out turnsofpagesproductions.com. Turnsofpagesproductions.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs, where, once we get started, we will be prepared and ready to carry great shows such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. We have our friend Britt, who is not currently attached to any show, but she is welcome to come on to the channel as soon as she gets something going, so we will definitely watch for any project that we have coming from her. And we have another surprise program that'll be coming up and joining us at the start. Watch for the updates. John of the Porch Boys will be joining me on Ed Talk, which is going to be mostly live chat, but on top of that, we're also going to pay lip service to at least the topic, because it's mostly live chat, of what happened with the fall of Anakin Skywalker. And how that happened, he knows a lot more lore than I do, so definitely go and check that out. It's going to be a fun time. I know we're going to have some discussion about that. We're probably going to have a lot of audience participation in that as well, so definitely come back, enjoy that. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a great time, so definitely come and join us for that. And if you do want to help us out, Give, Send, Go is going to be going live fairly soon here. GiveSendGo.com/turnsofpages101 to help us support and get everything started, so I think, again, that's going to be a good time. We at Turns of Pages Productions are getting some startup costs together so we can make sure our wonderful web developer, Bobby Joe, can get paid, because we like Bobby Joe around here. Our mission is to give you a better news, political, and cultural experience by giving you those topics from people who are just like you, people who've had to make the decisions that you have had to make, who've had to budget, who've had to worry about new laws or new policies, and have sometimes had to decide which bills get paid as opposed to getting your news from people in suits that cost more than your house. Please consider a donation to help us get there. If you choose to be named, we will make sure that you are thanked on the pledge. TurnsOfPagesProductions.com. Funds received by government name here. Go and check that out. It's going to be a good time, and yeah, help us out. Help us work from the bottom. We are just like you, and sometimes we do have to come back and ask for a little bit of help to try to give you a better news experience. All right, let's get into the main topics here, starting with the Dow. The Dow spent the day up yesterday, up to 35,160.79, starting off from just short of the 35,000 mark. So everything is looking like it's coming back up. Netflix is being a big draw on the NASDAQ. Like, if you look at the other indices as of this point, let's get Binance up here just for a second. If you look at the other indices throughout the day yesterday, you know, you're 35,160.79 on the Dow. That was through most of the day up. But the S&P and the NASDAQ both dropped throughout the day yesterday. And the NASDAQ tanked, because Netflix is going to be the big weight on that one. But the industrials, especially with energy costs right now, are holding up and holding steady right now. So we will see what happens with that and where that goes. Your Bitcoin had another up day. It dropped, and then it came back up, and it did close up higher than it did the day before again, but it's choppy right now looking at Bitcoin, especially when we're looking at the fact that there's going to be a major crackdown on this once again, and another big seizure from that currency that, of course, is never, ever going to be able to be traced. They're going to be able to buy hookers with it. Oh my God. Sounds like the moral panic from the 90s, and I'm surprised it's coming out of Democrats. Looking at gas prices around the Madison area, $3.55 is your low price again. Still hovering up at the $3.69 mark. Not cracking the $3.70 mark just yet, but it's coming. We'll see where it goes, and we'll see what happens with that. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. Special offer, 2 months for only $12. Dow futures rise solidly. Tesla, United Airlines jump on earnings after Netflix chills NASDAQ. From Ed Carson. Dow futures rose Thursday morning along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures. While Tesla earnings are in focus, the stock market rally was split Wednesday with the Dow Jones breaking above key levels, while the NASDAQ composite hit notable resistance as FANG stocks Netflix and Facebook plunged. Netflix crashed 35% on Wednesday, weighing on the NASDAQ. The surprising Netflix subscriber decline and weak outlook rocked the streaming sector from Disney to Roku. And we actually will be talking about that dedicatedly towards the end of the show. Because even Elon waited and, hey, maybe Elon will buy Netflix next. From Disney to Roku. Meanwhile, a negative Cleveland research note about slowing growth for Facebook parent and Meta platforms slammed Facebook stock for a 7.8% loss, with online plays generally struggling. Well, yeah, again, if people are going back into the point where they're having to take 2-3 part-time jobs, which I do think is what's part of what's taking down some of the unemployment, that they're getting jobs, but they're just not good jobs, and they're having to take a couple here and there, then they're not going to have time to sit and play on Facebook or sit and watch the Netflix. And, well, for Facebook, it's just a matter of they're not watching as many ads, but for the Netflix, I think some of them are looking at this and saying, hey, for $15 a month, I can buy 15 boxes of mac and cheese. Tesla headline earnings after the close. Alcoa, CSX, and Steel Dynamics and United Airlines also reported. American Airlines, Union Pacific, and Nucor released results early Thursday. Tesla popped overnight as it works on a cup with handle base. CSX is setting up for a while, again after a wild past few weeks. UAL stock jumped on a bullish outlook, with American also ascending, adding to a travel sector rebound. Will Elon say anything about his Twitter bid? Twitter rose 1.2% to $46.72 on Wednesday, shrugging off Facebook ad concerns. Musk has amassed 9.1% Twitter stake and has proposed paying $54.20 a share for the rest. But he hasn't made a formal bid, and he's apparently seeking partners to help finance a deal. Twitter doesn't seem keen on a Musk takeover, at least at that price. Tesla is on the IBD leaderboard and the IBD 50. On the futures, Dow rose almost a full percent, 1.8%, versus fair value. S&P advanced 0.95%. There's the words. NASDAQ climbed 1.35% after getting absolutely fucking spanked yesterday. Tesla and UAL are giving a lift to NASDAQ futures. The 10-year yield rose to 2.87%. Crude oil futures rose slightly, and remember, overnight action at Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that's what we see coming off the markets here. Our friends across the world from ABC Australia News telling us a little bit about what's happening with Netflix here in a way that we won't get this here and what this is going to do for the markets here. Let's read from abc.net.au. Netflix mass exodus spooks Wall Street. ASX closes up. So a little bit of weight on the local markets for us and a little bit of weight on the local markets for them. Australian shares closed higher on Thursday, boosted by industrials after Netflix stocks plummeted, causing pain on New York's tech-heavy NASDAQ exchange. The benchmark ASX 200 rose 0.3% to 75.29, while the broader All Ordinaries was up 0.2% to 78.87. 8 of 11 sectors on the ASX 200 ended higher, with industrials and real estate gaining the most. The top performing stocks were Challenger, Brambles, Lendlease, Clinuvel Pharmaceuticals, and Viva Energy. Tech was the biggest drag on the ASX 200, down 2.5%. And it's interesting to watch with that because, I mean, Australia is in a completely different market with us with completely different resources. And yes, they're starting to see some bad performances off of Life360, which I believe is an insurance company. Evolution Mining, which is, I mean, a big part of the Australian economy. Zipco and Alumina Limited. But still, the big weight on them is Netflix, something that's happening in New York, something that's happening globally. And yes, some of our influence in this country has tainted the rest of the world, the rest of the markets out there. And that's going to be something to watch as we go. Because a full tailspin of our economy is going to take a lot of the rest of this with them. So, something to watch, something to see as we go, and something to do with that. Let's get into the big news of the day, and that is the fact that, of course, everything is fine. This is fine. In the midst of massive supply chain issues throughout the country, it's absolutely fine that there was just a fire at a food processing plant, or a plane crashed into a potato processing plant, or a food bank bursting into flames, eliminating food from the markets. This is fine. Everything is fine. What surprised me about this is a lot of these were posted in the Porch Boys Discord under an archived link, and I looked into them, and most of these stories are 3 to 5 days old, which means that a break in the supply chain somewhere in time where we have record supply chain issues and record inflation, our mainstream media did not think it was important to report on any of this. That's part of what I have a problem with off of this, is that this is something that is actually going to affect the kitchen table. While people sit back and wonder why it is, why is it? And I'm, given the fact that these all happen within a few days of each other, I think that there's a pattern there where a conspiracy theorist could easily find malice to this. As of right now, I don't think that there's malice. I don't think that there's concerted effort or malice. I mean, it's fun to sit back and do the conspiracy thing, obviously, but as of right now, I think that this is just random chance. But the fact that these all happen within a couple days tells me that we're going to be seeing some inflation coming off of this. So let's go down through the list and see some of the things that have happened over the past few days. Starting with KTLA 75. Out of California, massive fire at Salinas food processing plant contained after evacuations and school closures. From the Associated Press, and this was all the way back on April 14th. Firefighters contained a massive blaze at a Central California food processing plant that prompted authorities to tell thousands of nearby residents to evacuate Thursday and to order tens of thousands more to stay inside their homes. The fire started Wednesday night at Taylor Farms packaged salad plant in Salinas, about 110 miles south of San Francisco. The flames were under control by late morning Thursday, but the shelter-in-place and evacuation order remained while hazardous materials crews worked at the scene, said Sophia Rome, a spokesperson for the city of Salinas. Authorities initially said they feared the fire could generate an explosion and a plume of hazardous ammonia, but the Salinas Fire Department later said those threats appeared to be minimal. About 27 people living closest to the plant were told that they should evacuate, while 35,000 more were ordered to shelter inside their homes, the Monterey County Office of Emergency Services said in a statement. Those staying home were told to shut windows and turn off ventilation systems until further notice, the statement said. The shelter-in-place and evacuation orders were finally lifted at about 1:30 p.m. Officials said the people evacuated after the fire was reported at 7:15 p.m. Wednesday. Officials did not say what caused the fire. Interesting, because we have no idea what caused this fire. A woman who answered the phone at Taylor Farms in Salinas told reporter Seton Comment to call back later for information. So, interestingly enough, and this is salad processing, so this isn't a major staple coming out. This is basically end user from the factory to wherever you're getting your salad from, whether it be the grocery store, whether it be the gas station, etc. And for the most part, I believe this is going to be local to the area because it is really hard to transport that much salad from California to Boston. You're probably going to get a pretty soggy salad if it goes all the way to Boston that way. But regardless, this is going to put the strains on some places a little bit further east from Salinas to try to fill the void in the area that this particular food processing plant services, taking food away from people in the Utah region, the Oregon region, the southern Los Angeles region, etc. And again, given the fact that we've had so many supply chain problems, nobody reported on this. Moving on from the Daily Mail. Experienced female UPS pilot, 30, is killed instantly as her plane crashes into a potato processing plant with a large chimney blocking a nearby rural airport runway. Her family now wants the dangerous strip that she was landing at closed. From Andrea Blanco for DailyMail.com. An experienced female pilot was killed instantly after her plane crashed into a potato processing plant with a large chimney next to a rural airport in Idaho. Brittany Infinger, 30, was flying UPS packages from Salt Lake City, Utah to Burley, Idaho when the tragedy took place. Around 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday, 90 minutes into her flight, Brittany's single-engine 208B plane crashed into Gem State Processing Plant in Hayburn, Idaho. Brittany, described as a well-respected pilot beyond her years, had more than 11 years of flying experience around Utah and Idaho. Her distraught father, Jim Bob Infinger, because of course he has to be named James Robert. Why would he be named in Idaho in a story like this? Anything but James Robert. Has said that Brittany knew the area well and flew into Burley International Airport all the time. He blamed a hazardous chimney on the Gem State Processing Plant for the deadly crash and called for authorities to close the nearby landing strip. This is the part that blows my mind. Now, part of me has to wonder if this was an actual accident. But given the fact, again, that they're trying to go and blame the chimney to a landing strip that she has flown into and out of dozens, if not hundreds of times, according to this article. You know, that does tickle some of the tinfoily stuff in my head. Again, given the fact that this is all within a number of days of each other. By the way, this was April 18th of 2022, so we've got one from April 14th and one from April 18th, going again into a food processing plant. There's a 60-foot chimney sticking out of the food processing plant. No lights on it, dead center, straight across the runway. So whenever you come in, you have to fly over the top of this and drop down, Jim Bob told the local news outlet, EastIdahoNews.com. The airport needs to be closed, period, Jim Bob said in the aftermath of the accident. I'm a pilot myself, and many pilots have told me how unsafe the Burley airport is and how they've begged the county to relocate it. They've allowed this potato plant to continue to expand this chimney. And this chimney comes on, and there's a huge amount of steam. If the wind is blowing, you fly right into a wall of steam. The Burley Airport is on the bank of the Snake River. On the other side of the river is the Gem State Processing Plant. Jim Bob has said Brittany might have hit a bird on her way down when approaching the airport. It's a bird in a plane! And now we've hit the food processing plant. Ooh, that's a wreck too. F in the chat for that. So that's a little bit of the map that's going off of there. This is on the Idaho-Utah line. That's Gem State Processing right there. Going in and across to the landing strip. So if there is, apparently, allegedly, a big chimney there, Now, there is no word as of right now if the processing plant had to be shut down. I would think it'd be obvious, though, because, I mean, you don't want concrete in your potatoes. But as of right now, this is also still a developing story, and we will see what happens with that. And pilot was killed instantly. So pilot can't answer questions either. From Arizona's Family 3 and CBS 5, 50,000 pounds of food destroyed after fire ripped through Maricopa Food Pantry. From David Caltabiano? Yeah, let's go with that. This is from March 29th, by the way. It's a long road to recovery for Maricopa Food Pantry after a fire destroyed around 50,000 pounds of food. The fire happened just 15 minutes after their food bank closed on Monday. Smoke was still coming from the rubble 24 hours later. It had to be 40 to 50 feet in the air, just pure black smoke. It engulfed the entire neighborhood, said Maricopa Food Pantry President Mike Connolly. The heat we could feel down at the corner. The fire came dangerously close to Mountain View Community Church, where Connolly and CEO Jim Shove are elders, and where they feed the community. What hurts the most is the impact on the community around us. A lot of people benefited around here. Maricopa is a food desert. There isn't a lot of food banks and stuff out here, said Connolly. Connolly said investigators still didn't know what caused the fire, but he and Shove believe the trailers, with more than 100 gallons of diesel fuel to refrigerate the food, made it much worse. This looks bad, but we're not done. We're going to come out of the rubble, said Shove. Shove and his wife founded the food pantry more than 20 years ago. All that matters, they said, is that no one was hurt and the church is still standing. This is God's house and its mission, and it's up to us to continue his mission, said Connolly. But 50,000 pounds of food in what's described as a food desert. And now again, all of this has to be restocked. Excuse me. A little bit of a cough going on here today. A lot of sneezing this morning. The flowers are getting ready to fuck again. From ABC 15 out of Arizona, a little bit of a white pill back off of this one here. Food from St. Mary's Food Bank helps the town of Maricopa. From Mark Thompson. Stepping up to feed families in desperate need, last month the food pantry serving the town of Maricopa was destroyed by a devastating fire, leaving residents there going without. But help is on the way. Crews worked quickly Wednesday morning at the St. Mary's Food Bank warehouse in Phoenix, landing thousands of pounds of food. Loading, not landing. Pallet after pallet headed to serve the residents of Maricopa after all three trailers there, stocked with food, were lost in a matter of hours. All three of their trailers burned, and they've been down ever since, said Jerry Brown, Director of Public Relations for St. Mary's Food Bank. In the meantime, food was delivered to some residents door to door, but St. Mary's is helping to restock. 3 new trailers with 50,000 pounds of food is on the way. The trailers containing both frozen and non-perishable items to get the Maricopa County back up and running in time for normal distributions this weekend. They'll be ready for their first distribution since the fire happened on Saturday, Brown said. The Maricopa Food Pantry was a lifeline for many, serving 1,500 families a week. And with the area labeled a food desert, the need for services is ongoing. This is a big deal for people out there. We wanted to do this as soon as possible, Brown said. So a little bit of a white pill to that. People and communities stepping up to go back and help. But again, this is pulling out of resources from other areas. And the good donors now have to pull out their own personal resources, which, good on them. Absolutely good on them for doing so. Which means, though, that they have to go out and put more demand on more food coming off of more shelves. Which again, in turn, needs to be restocked so more people can go back out and buy this. And 50,000, in the grand scheme of things for the U.S., is not a huge, massive draw of food. But especially in what is considered, again, a food desert, it's significant enough for people to step up and notice. So, some things to watch about with that. But again, we're within 3 weeks. We've got 3 of these. And this was posted yesterday as people are starting to come back around. And this is the last one. Also on the left coast, by the way, 7 injured in explosion as fire engulfs food plant, smoke visible for miles. From Jake Thomas. All right. This is from Jake Thomas. Multiple workers are hospitalized following an explosion at a food processing facility that has nearby residents on alert for possible evacuation. The explosion occurred Tuesday evening at Shear's Foods in Hermiston, a city in the agriculturally rich eastern Oregon. No deaths have been reported from the blast, but the extent of the damage to the plant and its future were not clear. City officials are concerned what the fire could mean for the community and the local economy. It looks like everything is indicating that it's going to be a big loss, and we don't know what the parent company will decide to do, Hermiston City Manager Byron Smith told the Tri-City Herald. But we know that 400 people roughly work there, so it will have a big impact on the community. Medical and fire units, as well as law enforcement from multiple jurisdictions, arrived at the facility after the employees called 911 to report possible injuries from a boiler explosion, according to the Umatilla County Sheriff's Office. 7 workers who were at the facility during the explosion have been treated at Good Shepherd Healthcare System. KTZed, spokeswoman for the hospital, told Northeast Oregon Now. All the patients are in stable or fair condition, she said. Newsweek has reached out to the hospital for further comment. The sheriff has posted a picture to its Facebook page of a plume of black smoke wafting from the facility. In response to the blast, Union Pacific has closed down traffic on its nearby rail line. According to the sheriff's office, the State Department of Transportation has also closed off a section of the 207. Additionally, residents living south of the explosion in an RV park and 2 hotels have been told to prepare for possible evacuation because of air quality issues caused by the smoke plume. This one is a little bit older. I'll have to go talk to my friend Midget B about posting old articles. This is from all the way back in February, but now we see Oregon, Arizona, Idaho, California. A series of links in the supply chain that went almost completely unreported. 3 of them happening within a few weeks of each other, all on the West Coast. While we're sitting here with massive inflation and nobody's addressing this. Now, again, I don't know if there's going to be any foul play off of this. Apparently, Arvold has said that she crashed into the potato plant. It's because she's a terrible pilot. So apparently this is, a much easier flight than what the article was trying to suggest. I don't know. I have not seen the area. I would actually have to go out to Idaho and see this particular plant to be able to see where you come into it, what the chimney looks like, and what happens if you hit the stick a little bit the wrong way. Because I don't know. Because I've never witnessed it. But that there, if true, suggests that there could be some foul play. And of course, no offense, Arvold, but you're not green check verified. So as of right now, this is where we stand with this. Of course, this is all just coincidental. But again, in a time where there are major supply chain issues. And one isn't even a food processing plant, but it's a part of the supply chain, which means that other parts of the supply chain do have to come in and pick up the slack for it. I have a lot of questions. I don't know if there is foul play involved in this. I do have questions for it. But that's what we see coming off of that. Let's shift gears here. Let's look into the midterms. From NBC, top Florida Democrat sues Biden admin over marijuana and guns. This is, of course, Nikki Fried, who, if you've spent any time on Twitter and are at all political, you know who this woman is because Twitter, once they started the "you may like" section, probably posted her numerous times to the top of your feed. You've probably been exposed to her just saying, "Vote for me, I'm not Ron DeSantis," over and over and over again. Which I've called her on the fact because I don't block anybody. I think a lot of you might have blocked her already. I don't block anybody on Twitter, no matter how much I can't stand them. But I've called her on this numerous times, telling you, hey, Nikki, do you have something other than vote for me, I'm not Ron DeSantis? Well, I guess it turns out that she does, but a lot of progressives really are not going to like her for it. This is from Mark Caputo. Florida's lone statewide elected Democrat, Agricultural Commissioner Nikki Fried, plans to sue the Biden admin Wednesday to try to block a federal rule that prohibits medical marijuana users from buying guns or maintaining concealed carry permits. NBC News obtained a draft copy of the lawsuit. The lawsuit targets a federal form that asks whether the gun buyer is an unlawful user of drugs and specifies that marijuana is illegal under federal law. A person allowed by the state to use marijuana must then check yes, which results in the denial of the purchase. Lying by checking no runs the risk of a 5-year prison sentence for making a false statement. Fried, whose office oversees the concealed weapons permits and regulates some aspects of medical marijuana, argues in her lawsuit that the form violates the Second Amendment's rights of lawful medical marijuana patients and runs afoul of constitutional budget prohibition on federal agents interfering with state-sanctioned cannabis law. The suit has ramifications beyond Florida. At least 37 states have legalized medical marijuana, and recreational use is legal in 18 states as well as Guam and Washington, D.C. The lawsuit is timed to land on April 20th, a nod to the slang reference of 420 for marijuana. Let's look at this here because this is something that they're having a conversation with. We'll look at this briefly because, it's pertinent to this argument. But once we're done looking at this, I will come back and I have some opinions about this. I really do.
The House passed landmark legislation that would make cannabis legal federally. It's a big deal. It's not a done deal yet, but it's a big deal. This bill would eliminate penalties all across the country for anybody making or distributing or having cannabis. Of course, until it passes the Senate, it is a state issue, right? You've got more than 30 states that have legalized medical marijuana, nearly 20 that have legalized recreational marijuana. Mexico, actually, becoming the 18th state to allow legal sales of recreational weed today. And these days, in some of those states where cannabis is legal, companies are infusing marijuana ingredients into other products, like stuff that you drink. A lot of people considering them an alternative to alcohol. I got to head to a tea party in California to check out what all the hype is all about. I did not partake. I got to say, I think I'm legally bound to say that. But I still got to go and check it all out. Watch. 313 in fact. Hills above Silicon Valley, these women are having a tea party.
Yeah, well, cheers. Maybe should I wait? You first?
Featuring an herb you may not expect.
So Tracy, what's your experience with cannabis? I really would recommend Sympathy. It's perfect for chronic pain. CBD, THC, also a lot of natural and powerful anti-inflammatories like ginger, turmeric, tulsi.
Picoco's a wellness company that makes cannabis-infused teas, mints, and more.
Well, welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for coming today. We really appreciate your showing up.
They say parties like these helped boost their bottom line, contributing to a 15% jump in sales last year. Cannabis drinks overall are having a moment right now, with more than $64 million worth sold last year in California alone, according to one industry researcher. Part of the point of parties like these, showing people, especially women, that you don't have to get super high to get the most out of cannabis.
Okay, first thing I need to do is have somebody explain to me how this is any different at all from what we did in college, where a bunch of us stood around in a circle and just kept passing around a blunt. Because I don't see a difference. Except I think the big difference here is a lot of the times some of us did this in a car. The suit is laden with political opportunity for Freed, who became the only Democrat elected statewide in 2018 when she ran on an unabashedly pro-cannabis platform. 2 years before, 71% of Florida voters legalized medical marijuana, and a poll shows a majority favor legalization of recreational use. Florida also has 2.5 million concealed weapons permits holders, according to Freed's office. Medical marijuana is legal, guns are legal. This is all about people's rights, Freed said in a statement to NBC News, and I don't care who I have to sue to fight for their freedom. All right. It's time. It's time to talk about what this actually means for the midterms, for Florida, for the gubernatorial race, and what this means for the nation full on. Now, the first thing that I actually do have to say about this has to do with Freed herself and the fact that, as I mentioned, her rhetoric, her bullshit has been foisted on anybody who uses Twitter, who is, again, like I said, even remotely political. She is right up at the top, and I would be willing to bet that people who aren't political are getting this bullshit as well. But yes, every time you log in, if you are even remotely political, right to the top, Nikki Freed. I am the only Democrat who's been elected in Florida in 20 years. And now I'm going to be the governor. Ron DeSantis is doing this, so you should vote for me. Ron DeSantis is eliminating our educational systems. You should vote for me. Ron DeSantis did this. Vote for me. And it's always the same message. Ron DeSantis. Vote for me. Ron DeSantis. Now, given what the mainstream media is telling us about Ron DeSantis and trying to make us believe about Ron DeSantis, that is, for progressives, probably a winning platform, and progressives nationwide have been out in support of Freed, in spite of the fact that they knew nothing before yesterday about her actual platform policy. Which, and again, I will admit to the same that I didn't either. But now it's been made point-blankedly clear. And what's been the most fun about watching this, about seeing what's happening with this, is the fact that you're now seeing a number of people out on Twitter trying to tell you that they always hated Nikki Freed. They're trying to rewrite history again. They're trying to claim that a lot of them are probably going back and deleting tweets right now in support of Nikki Freed because she sued the Biden administration. This is a lockstep system in the Democrat Party. And if you're going to run, now, to be able to run as a Democrat in Florida and be able to win, you have to be in a certain support of armaments and free weed. But Freed was also photographed, and they found this as well, on a plane celebrating the fact that the mask mandate got struck down on planes, which means she doesn't follow into that religious ideology either. When Freed did this yesterday, she completely tanked her gubernatorial plans. Not because she might not have appealed to more centrist Republicans, who may not be in favor of the tax hikes that they're going to go put on Disney and what's going to happen with Disney, but people who may be more willing to listen about, hey, maybe this isn't going to be a gun-grabbing politician, maybe this isn't going to be a tax and spend and take everything away from you to go give it away to people who don't work, that kind of politician, that kind of Democrat. The problem is now she can't get through her primary because every progressive is working actively to try to tank the rest of her campaign because she doesn't like Biden, she must be in support of the evil orange man. Couple other problems with Freed at this point. Freed is currently engaged as somebody who stands to make millions off of bringing more medical marijuana use into the state of Florida. If people don't have to worry about the fact that they might lose their concealed carry weapons permit, or that they might lose their ability to purchase a firearm in general because they use cannabis recreationally or medically recently, her fiance, who is in the medical marijuana industry, stands to make millions of dollars off of this. And the biggest problem that I have with this is that Freed, and this is part of what launched her to national prominence, Freed openly bragged about the fact that during the January 6th Selfie Fest, while the investigations were going on with that, without due process, Freed is the agricultural commissioner who actually has the authority over these particular permits, suspended and denied concealed carry permits for anybody in the state of Florida who had a concealed carry permit that was even tangentially involved in the January 6th Selfie Fest. So she doesn't care about guns. She doesn't care about gun rights. She cares about making a political statement and doing what's going to be best for her bottom line, for her family's bottom line. This is the epitome of a politician trying to use using one office and trying to use another office for financial and fiscal gain. This is a corrupted politician. Who almost got away with it because nobody knew anything about her campaign, about her platforms, about any of her beliefs, except for the fact that she hates Ron DeSantis the mostest. And that's what they were trying to elevate her for. Literally, hating Ron DeSantis the mostest. So, we have one message, as we say. And of course, this one might be a little bit premature. She might find a way to weasel her way back out of this, but it's going to be an uphill battle to the point where I do believe that, yes, we can probably safely play the song that we love to play around here. Sing those nanas. Let's keep going. Some more Florida news here. DeSantis versus Disney. What happens if legislature eliminates Reedy Creek Improvement District? I want to tell you right off the bat, I don't know that this was the right idea. I know that this was political retribution, and this might sink DeSantis, which you all know my opinion on DeSantis. I'm supposed to like him because I'm a Trump chud. I've never liked DeSantis. Yes, he does things that I like, but he does them in the wrong direction. He does them with the executive order pen. I have never liked Ron DeSantis. There's always been something about DeSantis that has rubbed me the wrong way. Always. And I could not vote for him in a primary. Even if he is leading by 1,000, and it's the popular thing to do, I could not vote for DeSantis in a primary. Again, not because it's that he's doing the wrong things. He's doing things that I very much agree with, except for this, possibly. But the fact that for most of his decisions, until he actually got called on it, he was way too comfortable just using the EO pen and making it happen. He was white Barack Obama. But let's read this. This is from Fox 35 News staff. The Florida Senate passed a bill on Wednesday that would address independent special districts, such as the Reedy Creek Improvement District, that effectively allows Walt Disney to govern itself. The Senate approved the measure, SB 4C, in a 23-16 vote, with Jeff Brandes of St. Petersburg as the sole Republican to join Democrats in the opposition. Similar legislation, HB 3C, was set for a third reading in the Florida House. DeSantis and some state legislators have sought to quickly eliminate independent special districts, claiming that it gives special privileges in the law to powerful companies or entities. Disney was targeted following its response over the Parental Rights in Education bill, which opponents have coined the Don't Say Gay bill. Disney, facing its own criticism from employees and groups for a perceived lack of response to the then proposed bill, criticized the legislation. In response, DeSantis referred to Disney as a woke corporation and has urged lawmakers to consider legislation in a special session to dismantle special protections for Disney. I'm announcing today that we're expanding the call of what they are going to be considering, DeSantis said during a news conference at the Villages on Tuesday. Yes, they'll be considering the congressional map, but they'll also be considering termination of all special districts that were enacted in Florida prior to 1968. That includes the Reedy Creek Improvement District. DeSantis, whose comment drew applause from the crowd, has previously hinted at his support for repealing the 55-year-old state law that allows Disney to effectively govern itself on the grounds of Walt Disney World resorts. Why is it fair that one company gets to have these special privileges but others don't? It's a discussion worth having, said HB3C sponsor State Rep Randy Fine, R of Palm Bay. Fine wants lawmakers to consider revamping what Disney can and cannot do. And now, see, and again, I don't really support Disney off of this, but as far as opening up tax burdens, making it easier for things to do, why can't we just expand these same abilities to other companies? Why does it have to be about punitive measures to go after a company that does employ millions of people? Instead of saying, hey, you know, this is actually a really good idea and this generates a lot of revenue. Hey, companies around the country, do you want to come to Florida where it's nice and warm and sunny all the time and enjoy all the same benefits that Disney does? Look at all these fine benefits that we give to Disney. Don't you want these too? And Randy Fine is almost there. It's like, oh, well, hey, there's special privileges for Disney. Why don't other companies get it? He's almost there. He's almost to that point. We are the business-friendliest state in the country. Look at all these things that we give to Disney. We can give those to you too. Just come down here. They have the ability to go and seize your property without your permission, the right to build a nuclear power plant, which is one of the things that they have, he said. Fine said the local authorities would take over running Reedy Creek, which has around 400 employees. Some political analysts said this could be a way for the governor to punish Disney, which, and yeah, it was pointed out by Helton over here too, the fact that a lot of this, what this does, is puts more burden onto the localities, and this does punish the residents of the area around Reedy Creek. They have got to go start to do their own sewer, which is going to be taxpayer funded. They've got to start doing more police, more localities, more stuff like that, because Disney doesn't take care of that anymore. And by the Florida tax law, especially going around business, which is already really friendly, Disney can get a lot out of a lot of those taxes. So yeah, a lot of that is going to fall to the burden of the people who live in that specific area. Which, strategically, again, I look at this and I wonder if this isn't strategic to try to make people more mad at Disney. Oh, Disney did this and now we don't get to enjoy the tax benefits we had from living close to Disney? Boo, Disney! There's a lot of politics to this. I don't like the way that this was handled. And again, I would like to see a more business-friendly model across the entire country, obviously, but, you know, try to get people in New York to adopt a business-friendly model for a billion-dollar company. They're not going to do it. California is far worse. And it really is. It's a fight between a California company and the Florida government. And when you come down to a fight between people like that, it's the little guy on the ground that suffers. They can absorb the cost that they're doing to, and really honestly, they can demolish and destroy all these buildings and go move somewhere else. I don't know where else they're going to move that's going to have a climate year-round that they can run their parks from. That's a challenge that they can have, but they can easily demolish every one of those businesses, buildings, kiosks, rides, etc., and go build it somewhere else. But the little guy, the you and the me, those are the people that have to suffer because of this. I don't know what the answer is either. I just don't feel like this is the way to go about it. Let's keep going. This was almost the thing that I like today, but I figured if I made this the thing that I like, I would probably land on some sort of watch list. U.S. Army parachute demo at Nats Park causes false alarm, brief Capitol evacuation. From Michael Balsamo and Zeke Miller. The U.S. Capitol was briefly evacuated Wednesday after police identified an aircraft that they said posed a probable threat. But the plane was actually carrying members of the U.S. Army Golden Knights, who then parachuted into Nationals Park for a pregame demonstration. Yeah, these are the people that think that they want to run every aspect of your life. That can't even protect their own goddamn buildings. The alert from the U.S. Capitol Police sent to congressional staffers fleeing from the Capitol and legislative building around 6:30 p.m. Run, you morons, run! The incident suggested a stunning communications failure between the military, the Federal Aviation Administration, and the Capitol Police. All the more remarkable because of Washington's focus on improving security since the January 6th Selfie Fest. Oh, I gotta wonder how many of them were running, especially the staffers, because let's be frank, the Congress people know. They know when they're orchestrating their next false flag attack. They knew what was happening on January 6th. They know what's happening the next time they stage a false flag. But how many of the staffers down there are like, oh, the MAGA people are coming back to finish the job. They're coming back to kill us. They're bringing an airplane. Which is funny because 2 years ago, the same panic would have been, oh, the Arabs. Pelosi blamed the Federal Aviation Admin in a statement Wednesday night, saying its apparent failure to notify Capitol Police of the pre-planned flyover National Stadium is outrageous and inexcusable. The FAA, is that still Pelosi? I have no idea if that's still Pelosi or not. Well, we're going to say that's still Pelosi. The FAA takes its role in protecting the national airspace seriously and will conduct a thorough and expeditious review of the events this evening and share updates. Oh, that's the agency. The agency sent a statement. We know our actions affect others, especially in our nation's capital region, and we must communicate early and often with our law enforcement partners. Run! You villains, you scum, you people who seek power in the government, run! Run in fear! Yeah, I'm probably on a list somewhere. Everybody say hi to my new FBI agent. From ABC. Intruder at Peruvian embassy in D.C. shot dead by Secret Service. From Luke Barr and Emily Shapiro. An alleged intruder at the Peruvian embassy in Washington, D.C. was shot and killed by a Secret Service Wednesday morning, according to authorities. The suspect was found smashing windows of the Peruvian ambassador's residence, D.C. Metro Police Chief Robert Conti told reporters. The ambassador's relatives were inside and called the police just after 8 a.m., Conti said. The suspect was shot following confrontation in the backyard of the residence, the Secret Service said. Conti said the suspect allegedly pulled a metal stake on police. Officers used lethal force when tasers didn't work, he said. Conti said a motive remains under investigation, adding it's unclear if the suspect knew it was the ambassador's residence. The Peruvian ambassador's residence was damaged by the break-in, but the ambassador, his family, and staff, along with Secret Service agents, are all safe. The embassy said in a statement, 2 officers are being evaluated for injuries, Conti said. I want to know more about the suspect. I really do, because somebody going in, breaking a window, pulling out a metal stake. Should we be having protests across the... Oh, wait, no, we don't do that anymore. There's a Democrat in office. From ABC 13 On Your Side, prosecutor drops out of Governor Whitmer kidnapping plot case. Out of Grand Rapids. From On Your Side staff, a federal prosecutor withdrew Tuesday from the case of a plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer days after 2 men were acquitted and the jury couldn't reach a unanimous verdict on 2 more. Assistant U.S. Attorney Jonathan Roth notified the judge in a brief court filing he's not required to give a reason. We don't have any comment on our staffing of cases in this office, said Breanne Warner, a spokeswoman for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Grand Rapids. Roth was one of the 2 prosecutors at the high-profile trial of Adam Fox, Barry Croft Jr., Daniel Harris, and Brandon Caserta. He gave the opening statement saying the men wanted to kidnap Whitmer and create a war zone here in Michigan and aggressively cross-examined Harris, the only defendant to testify. Harris and Caserta were acquitted on April 8th. While the jury deadlocked on Fox and Croft, the government signaled that a second trial for Fox and Croft was likely, though no formal notice has been filed. Well, I'm going to go and press X to doubt on that one, that there's going to be a second trial because, again, they've already lost a prosecutor. And, I mean, this is not going to be one where, well, it might be where if somebody gives a whip out to the leftoids and say, hey, the prosecutor in the Whitmer case came out. I don't know that they're going to run out and say, check his bank account, transfers, it's going to say Trump, it's going to say Trump everywhere on it. I don't think that we're going to get that out of this. But maybe. But it sounds like the U.S. Attorney's Office has found out that this is all bullshit anyway. Some international news. Financial. The measure of German inflation just hit its highest level since 1949. And look, there's our Treasury Secretary telling us what's hurting the pandemic recovery.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says rising food prices threaten to push 10 million people into poverty. And she blamed Russia's war for the crisis and urged an IMF conference on finance ministers to help cushion the blow.
Poor nutrition and food insecurity have serious implications for economic well-being, social and political stability. The war has made an already dire situation worse. Price and supply shocks are already materializing, adding to global inflationary pressures, creating risks to external balances, and undermining the recovery from the pandemic.
So that's what they had to say with that. That's
U.S. Treasury
basic bullshit there. But let's look at Germany. The price of goods leaving
U.S.
Germany.
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen
Didn't I
says
tell you to shut
rising
up?
food prices.
Didn't I tell you to shut up just a couple seconds ago? The price of goods leaving German factories passed an eye-watering milestone. German annual producer price inflation topped 30% in March, the country's Federal Statistics Office said on Wednesday. That's its highest level since the agency began collecting data 73 years ago. The biggest culprit, energy prices, which rose nearly 84% from the same month last year. Mainly responsible for the high rise of energy prices were strong price increases of natural gas, which were up 144.8% in March of 2021, the Statistics Office said in a statement. It's one of the first signs of the huge impact Russia's invasion of Ukraine is having on the German economy. Europe's biggest producer prices rose by nearly 5% between February and March alone. Consumers should brace themselves. Factory gate inflation feeds into retail prices, and shoppers can expect to spend more on everything from furniture to meat, according to Wednesday's figures. German consumer price inflation is already at a 41-year high, hitting 7.3% last month. Energy prices were the main contributor, up almost 40% from the previous month. Global energy prices were rising before Vladimir Putin ordered the invasion. As economies began to reopen from the pandemic lockdowns, demand for fuel surged and wholesale prices shot up. But sanctions and efforts by European Union to slash consumption of its natural gas have pushed prices up even further. And all that I have to say about that is, and of course, this isn't the main inflation, like we said. And we said the same thing with the wholesale prices and the producer price index over here, which was 11%, but our inflation hand to mouth over here is only 8.5%. But numbers like this, they're coming. They're coming over here. And again, if you can garden, if you've got yard, if you've got land, either till it up and put a garden in, or even if you have to do it in a milk jug garden because you rent, or you don't have the space, or your homeowners association won't let you go out and garden regularly, get yourself a garden together. Get some chickens if you can. Get some meat, livestock if you can on your land. Yes, you can do a little bit of it on a small plot of land. Throw an extra row in if you already have a garden. Learn how to can, learn how to process, learn how to preserve. Because this isn't going away anytime soon. I didn't want to spend the money last night. I went in yesterday to the Target to go get laundry soap, and I noticed that they had jars on sale. And I bought another 12-pack of pint jars for $8 at Target. Because they're $2 a jar everywhere else right now. Because any way that you can find to go save some money, to make it yourself, to keep the preservatives out of it, you need to do it now. Seeds are cheap. I'm going to go out and buy a bunch more seeds today. Even though, again, I don't have a lot of space to go do a lot of gardening right now. I've got to at least get something started so I can make more. So I can get more going. Because this is coming over here. From Seeking Alpha. Israel's central bank takes on yuan, other currencies, in an effort to reduce dollar and euro exposure because the dollar and the euro are getting inflated like crazy. From Max Gottlieb. In an effort to offset its exposure to the US dollar, the euro, and the British pound, Israel's central bank this year is adding the yuan as well as 3 other currencies to its forex reserves, Bloomberg reported Wednesday, citing discussions held by the Monetary Committee last year. The Bank of Israel's foreign exchange holdings last year surpassed $200 billion for the first time ever, and the updated currency mix marks a change in the central bank's whole investment guidelines and philosophy, Deputy Governor Andrew Abir told Bloomberg in an interview, adding that the move will widen its investment horizon. Specifically, the pound and the yen will account for 5% of Bank of Israel's reserves, and Canadian and Australian dollars will have a combined 7%, Bloomberg noted. Based on these additions, the euro's weighting will fall to 20% from just above 30%, making it the lowest allocation in 10 years. Bloomberg highlighted the US dollar, the biggest share of the BOI's foreign exchange reserves, will account for 61% compared with 66.5% previously. On the other hand, the pound share will nearly double to 5%, to levels not seen since 2011. So, our greatest ally, of course. But this is a lack of confidence in the US dollar and the euro. And the US dollar was the currency that was holding up a lot of the rest of the world. Which may actually come out and lead to more inflation, as we see, and as we see more printed back off to try to hold off and pick up more goods. As far as Saudi Arabia, I don't think that they're going to bite the bullet off this. They do threaten this like every 3 years or so. It's something to watch, but it's not something that I think is inevitable. But we'll continue to watch and see where it goes. From Fox News. Reporter to Chicago's Lightfoot. How can you possibly even consider re-election after the harm you've caused? Lightfoot said that she fundamentally disagreed with the reporter. I'm sure she did. No video. A reporter asked Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot during a press conference Tuesday how she could even consider running for re-election after all the harm she's caused. The reporter began by saying the mayor always starts her press conferences by saying that crime is down and the economy is booming. Lightfoot said that this wasn't true and asked the journalist to continue with his question. The reporter noted that a police officer was recently struck and injured in a hit and run on Michigan Avenue is now referred to as the Mile of Fear. Michigan Avenue is a popular stretch of the city with entertainment, attractions, and restaurants, hotels, and shopping. Real Chicagoans are asking me how you can possibly even consider running for re-election for mayor of the city of Chicago after all the harm you caused, the reporter asked during Thursday's press conference. The mayor said she fundamentally disagreed with the reporter and that she did not want to dignify his comments. He asked a follow-up question about who Lightfoot would be facing in a re-election bid. Probably some Democrat somewhere. Lightfoot said she was focused on her day-to-day responsibilities and not who was running for mayor. The mayor has yet to officially announce her bid for re-election, but has been laying groundwork in recent public appearances. Yeah, and unfortunately you're not going to fix Chicago. It's had improvements since the 70s, but it's sunk back into what it was in the late 70s once again. So, I don't go there. I won't go there. I won't go past Elgin. Fuck that. If I get much past DeKalb County, I start to ignore the concealed carry laws of Illinois. Marjorie Taylor Greene news for you. Philip Kowski, of course, because he is sitting there. He's seeing the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to be sitting in front of people that don't like her, with the mainstream media able to clip and everything, and he's sitting there beating his fucking meat, like listening about it here. Marge continues to rage. They're actually putting me on the witness stand on Friday. I'm going to be the first Republican member of Congress that's going to be forced to take the stand under oath and defend myself. I cannot believe I'm going to be forced to do this. Let's listen.
In the state of Georgia, my case right now is in the administrative law court, and they're actually putting me on the witness stand on Friday. I am the first Republican member of Congress that is going to be forced to take the witness stand under oath and defend myself against a lie and something I never did. And so this is a precedent. It's a very dangerous precedent. I cannot believe that I'm being forced to do this. I can't believe this judge has not thrown this case out and seen it for what it is nothing but a big funded scam for the Democrats trying to control our elections. Here in the state of Georgia, my case right now is in the administrative law court, and they're actually putting...
So, and with this, again, I talked to my mom about this last night, actually. With this, I mean, it's not on New York Democrats to decide what happens in Georgia 14, and that is an R plus, I think, what is it, like 14 or 18 district? So it's not like she's going anywhere. And really, honestly, I do question legality of what it is that they're doing with this. That being said, I am to the understanding, even with this as being a civil, that Marjorie Taylor Greene is supposed to be impeached before they can bring her to trial for something. And this all has to go through the House. Oh, Tulsi Gabbard is trending. I wonder why. Guess we'll have to find out off air. What else do we have going on here? I like the Quest Fanning announcement today. We're going to retweet that, because that's fucking hilarious. All right, from the New York Times, a former newspaper. Only the feds could disqualify Madison Cawthorn and Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's right, because you can't beat them at the ballot box. So you have to use technicalities to make sure that these dangerous people can't represent the people that want them to represent them. From Josh Blackman and S.B. Tillman. The events of January 6, 2021 are casting a long shadow over the midterm elections. Voters in North Carolina are seeking to bar Representative... No, that's false. If they were seeking to bar him from running for his House seat, they would primary him. And those in Georgia are trying to do the same for Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. No. This is an act of Democrats in Washington, D.C. and various blue strongholds around the country to seek to bar her and him from running. The voters in these districts are okay with them, both. If they weren't, then you guys wouldn't be spending all this money to try to keep them out there by legal means. These voters have filed complaints with the state elections officials, arguing that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment disqualifies members of Congress who engage in insurrection from appearing on the congressional ballot. Challenges to other elected officials have also begun involving other candidates. But these challenges face an intractable problem. Only the federal government, not the states, can disqualify insurrectionists from congressional ballots. States cannot unilaterally create procedures. Actually, they can, unless authorized by federal statute. False. Article 2, Section 1 reigns supreme with this. Yes, the states can bar them, but they're not going to. They're not going to give you the outcome that you want. These members of Congress engaged in insurrection. The U.S. representatives may exclude them, or federal prosecutors may charge them with federal crime of insurrection. But in light of an important 1869 judicial decision, the cases against Mr. Cawthorn and Ms. Green, which are currently mired in both state and federal proceedings, cannot remove the candidates from the congressional ballot. Well, they can. Again, it's not the outcome that you want. Because they're not going to. The 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868 in the wake of the Civil War. Section 3 disqualified many former Confederates from holding certain public offices if they'd taken an oath to support the U.S. Constitution, but subsequently, as Section 3 declares, engaged in an insurrection or rebellion. Yes, and neither Cawthorn or Green did that. Once again, this is a made-up story because you can't beat them at the ballot box. You can't get enough Act Blue dollars pumped into these races to defeat them. You can't pull enough resources away from either weak or very safe candidates around the country from Act Blue to beat them, so you have to do it on a technicality. From Rolling Stone, Marjorie Taylor Greene has terrified the media watching her testify under oath. Well, yeah, I would be too. Because, and again, as I mentioned yesterday, when they're doing something like this, they're not doing this in good faith because they think they're going to get her taken off the ballot. In fact, I would argue that they already know that they're going to lose this battle in the court. But they can compel her to testify because it is a civil, it's not a criminal. She can't refuse to testify against herself. It's a criminal case or civil case, which means she can be called to testify, put under oath, and they can ask any, quote, reasonable question they want of her and get a response put on the record, or, on the other side of this, get her non-response or her outbreak caught on the record. They're doing this as a smear campaign. What else do we have? More Taylor Lorenz stuff. In a recent TikTok, Taylor Lorenz explains why it's bad to engage in doxing campaign of an individual and shares her horror at the media revealing a full name without getting comment. And of course, this video comes from none other than Libs of TikTok themselves. So the fight is on.
A bunch of people are asking if I'm going to write about the West Elm Caleb story. No, I'm on book leave. I can't keep writing pieces for the New York Times. I literally do have a lot of deadlines. But journalists who are writing about it, please speak to people with experience in online harassment. I'm not going to lie, I've been pretty horrified by a lot of the media coverage of this. A lot of people are just aggregating some of the cruelest commentary online and whipping it all up into a news story with absolutely no comment from Caleb or nuance about the situation. The top story on Google yesterday was literally this House Beautiful story that doxes Caleb, puts his full name in the story, zero comment from this man. After this whole article gleefully encourages this online harassment and doxing campaign, they literally use him to sell West Elm furniture through affiliate links. Once again, commercializing a harassment and doxing campaign. I think the media needs a total wake-up call in the way that they cover online harassment, and this is just the latest example of it. And reporters should be adding nuance, not just piling on. A bunch of
It must only be doxing and harassing if it's somebody that Taylor Lorenz likes. Because if she wants to go back and send out people linked to the woman's license that has her address on it, what do you think is going to happen? But that's what we see off of that. Some midterm panic for you guys, because I know we love midterm panic around here. Biden canceling student debt could help party avoid disaster midterms. From Matthew and Pelly. Elizabeth Warren, because it wouldn't be anybody except for Elizabeth Warren, said this week that providing additional student loan debt relief, among other measures, could potentially help Democrats avoid a disaster. On Monday, the New York Times, a former newspaper, published a guest essay from Warren entitled "Democrats Can Avoid Disaster" in November, where she wrote that she felt the Democratic Party needed to do more to deliver on promises that it made to voters to avoid big losses in the midterms. Democrats need to deliver more of the president's agenda, Warren wrote, or else we will not be in the majority much longer. I'm sorry, husband. Come out here. Would you like a beer, please? I think that I'm going to have a beer. In addition to saying legislators need to address climate change, root out corruption, and close tax loopholes for the rich, among other members, Warren also directly addressed what she saw as the need to provide more student relief than what was already been provided, which includes some additional debt relief announced this week. We also need to use every tool of the presidency to deliver for working people, Warren wrote. For example, by a margin of more than 2-to-1 American support providing some student loan debt cancellation, an action the president could take entirely on his own, which is also a fallacy. Congress needs to be involved in that. Doing so would lift the economic outlook for too many borrowers who still aren't able to get a college diploma, for the millions of female borrowers who shoulder about 2/3 of all student loan debt, and for Black and Hispanic borrowers, a higher percentage of whom take on debt to attend college compared to white students and have a harder time paying it off after school. With the stroke of a pen, the president could make massive strides to close the gender and racial wealth gaps. Yes, and eliminate an entire industry. Put massive amounts of income on people who can't afford the taxes that are going to come from it. And again, print your way out of money, out of a problem that you yourselves have created. The LA Times columnist, parental rights and education laws, puritanical, anti-sex, anti-birth control, anti-woman. From Gabriel Hayes. An LA Times opinion column Wednesday claimed that the puritanical Republicans are using the parental rights and education laws and conflating sex ed with encouraging sexual behavior as a scare tactic to rile the base and raise money. Well, see, nobody's watching network television anymore, so you can't use 90210 to try to get teenagers to be promiscuous. According to columnist Robin Apkarian, the children are sexually active, and the GOP lawmakers have no right to prevent their sex ed at a young age. Dude, we're talking about 8-year-olds. Apkarian began her column with a question. Why is the GOP so hell-bent on linking discussions about sexual preference and gender identity to pedophilia and child molestation? Well, because we're talking about 8-year-olds. She asked why so many Republicans have adopted the word groomer as a slur for people who think it's important for educators to be able to talk about these issues at school, even with young kids. Well, because we're talking about 8-year-olds. In her opinion, it's simply a scare tactic to rile the base and raise money. Yes, because we're talking about 8-year-olds. If we want to have a conversation about education, for your changing body, for somebody whose body is actually already in the process of changing, 12, 13, up to 15 and 16-year-olds, or the effects of certain agendas on society with 16, 17, and 18-year-olds. This would be an entirely different conversation. But you are talking about implying and implicating gender identity on 8-year-olds. The LA Times columnist dismissed the indoctrination reports by some parents and concerned citizens as frank discussions about sexuality and gender. She went on to say conflating sex ed with encouraging sexual behavior is one of the oldest tricks in the GOP's puritanical anti-sex, anti-birth control, anti-woman playbook. You know, it just... And I know that there was a difference in the religious outlining of this. But I'm going to tell you right now, when I was voting Democrat, I was a serial monogamist. 2 of the 3 times I was engaged happened while I was voting Democrat. 2 of them. And in fact, I think almost the entire time I was voting Democrat, I was in one long series of always being in a committed relationship. I'm going to tell you, when I was voting neocon fucking Republican, God help me the fact that I ever did, I was getting laid more often then than I ever did as the woke progressive Democrat that I was in my youth. So yes, anti-sex, absolutely. Upcarion's next point involved claims of child sexual activity at a very young age, as if it should open the door to schools discussing it. And as any observant parent knows, children do not have to be taught to be sexually active. They are sexually active. What? Even our youngest... Oh my god. Really? I feel like we need this for the rest of this article. And there's not much parents can or should do about it, she said. I thought there was a 10-hour one of those. There we go. That's the one I wanted. She then recalled how 25 years ago, when my daughter was a toddler, I would sometimes walk to her bedroom and see her humping on a pillow or a blanket. No one taught her about touching her, that touching herself felt good. Like most kids, she discovered that all on her own. Upcarrion declared, left unexplained is why, if a hands-off approach was good for her own daughter, she's advocating differently for today's young children. Yes, But you don't have a stranger in a public government setting do it for you. You, as a parent of the toddler, are the one that has that discussion. You, the person who will have to raise this person and make this person into a productive member of society, you have that conversation. And again, we're talking about 8-year-olds. What happened to this fucking world? Let's get a couple more of these done before I just throw my headphones off in frustration. Secret Service seizes more than $102 million in crypto assets. You know, your very, very anonymous cryptocurrency that can be traced. It can't be traced. You can buy prostitutes and drugs with it. From Scott Zamost and Iman Jabbers. The U.S. Secret Service is cracking down on illicit digital currency transactions, seizing more than $102 million in cryptocurrency from criminals in connection with fraud-related investigations. Yes, people might buy drugs or prostitutes with it. It'll be totally anonymous. Nobody will ever be able to find it. David Smith, an assistant director of investigation, said agents and analysts actively track the flow of Bitcoin and other cryptos on the blockchain, similar to an old-fashioned surveillance. Best known for protecting presidents, the Secret Service also conducts financial and cybercrime investigations. Which I don't know why, but they do, apparently. When you follow a digital currency wallet, it's no different than an email address that has some correlating identifiers. But it's completely anonymous, and people might be able to buy drugs or human traffic with it. I don't really care about the details of what this is. This is just out there to remind you that if you're using cryptocurrency to go out and buy drugs, you are what we call stupid. Use cash, just like everybody else has, forever, because that's less traceable than crypto that is on a bunch of ledgers across thousands of computers across the internet. You moron. The DOJ is going to appeal the ruling striking down the mask mandate because the CDC said it was okay. From Steve Nelson and Sam Chamberlain. The Justice Department filed a notice on Wednesday for a mandate that only had 12 days left, that it will appeal a Florida federal judge's order striking down the long-running rule that forced the plane and train passengers to wear masks. The notice of appeal was filed in a Tampa federal court at the behest of the CDC, ending 48 hours of uncertainty after federal officials stopped enforcing the rule late Monday, and President Biden said, "That's up to them," Tuesday when asked if people should keep wearing masks on planes. It was not immediately clear whether the DOJ had asked for the stay of the U.S. District Judge Catherine Kimball Mizell's Monday ruling that the CDC overstepped its authority by imposing the mask rule. If a stay is ordered, it would immediately force many airlines, airports, mass transit authorities, and even Uber and Lyft to reimpose mandates days after making masks optional. To protect the CDC's public health authority beyond the ongoing assessment announced last week, the CDC asked the DOJ to proceed with the appeal, the CDC said Wednesday evening statement, and that right there, that little sentence right there tells you everything that you need to know about why they're actually doing this. This has nothing to do with a mask. They've sent their little foot soldiers out there to tell you on Twitter how evil you are. They're little foot soldiers, by the way, who haven't worn a mask anywhere except for on an airplane in 6 months. But they've sent their little foot soldiers out there to tell you how evil you are because You want this struck down on the airplane. But in reality, it's not about the mask. It's not about the coronavirus, and they don't give a fuck about this. If this ruling is allowed to stand, this means that the CDC doesn't have the authority to ever do this again. This has nothing to do with public health anymore. This is about the retention of power, and everybody knows it. This is blatantly obvious. That's why they're going to issue this. That's why they're trying to discredit the judge, and that is why they're trying to get this appealed. Again, willing to bet right now at this point that this was going to be allowed to expire. This is over in 12 days. But if it comes from the judicial ruling, then they can't come back and force this down on your throats one more time. Netflix warns of a crackdown on password sharing. Here's what it means for viewers. Fuck, we might get through everything today. From Wilson Wong and Rob Wiley. After Netflix announced this week that it had lost subscribers for the first time in a decade, it suggested a global crackdown on the password sharing could be imminent. Such measures could include charging users a fee for sharing their accounts outside of their household. Well, if you do that, we're done. I'm going to tell you that right now. And by the way, I haven't really used Netflix for quite a while. I've been kind of scoping out Paramount Plus. I've had a couple of stand-up specials that I got off Netflix, but yeah, if you do this, we're done. I should probably text my sister and tell her that, because I don't think she watches this show. But if you're going to charge me extra to let my parents and my sister use this, then fuck you. We're done. The global streaming juggernaut ended the first 3 months of the year with 200,000 fewer subscribers, well below its prediction of gaining 2.5 million paying customers. The company lost 700,000 subscribers in early March after its decision to suspend service in Russia after the country invaded Ukraine. Netflix, which currently boasts 221.6 million users, saw record growth in demand in the early days of the pandemic as people around the world were stuck at home and flocked to their screens to binge-watch shows and movies. But the sharing of passwords and stiff competition from other streaming platforms have made it hard for Netflix to pull in new viewers. Well, and a point where the market is saturated. I mean, I think most everybody has access to a Netflix account at this point. To increase subscribers and curb revenue loss, the company suggested it would implement a number of new measures like charging a fee for users sharing passwords and introducing a cheaper advertising-supported plan. Well, again, if that's how you want to do it, I don't need to give you my money. I do not. So do keep that in mind. I disagree with you, Ron. I think that at some point they are. The ad-based one, I think, is going to possibly pull in some new users because of the price point. Because they'll probably charge like $5 or $7 for it if it's ad supported, versus the $17 that it is now for the regular plan. But going on with this from CNN, Netflix's world has been turned upside down as stock plunges 35%. From Frank Pallotta. Call 11 and Sheriff Hopper of Stranger Things because Netflix world has been turned upside down. The company reported Tuesday that it lost subscribers for the first time in more than a decade. The news shocked Wall Street and sent shares plummeting 35% Wednesday morning, wiping out $50 billion in market cap. And this was after the company's stock had dropped more than 40% year to date. Simply put, Netflix's terrible 2022 has now become disastrous, and they're doubling down and making it harder on themselves. Once bullish experts and analysts who view Netflix as the linchpin of transforming entertainment industry are now concerned about its growth going forward, and they're wondering what the future of the company and all of streaming might look like. What worked until this point may not be working anymore, said Michael Nathanson, a media analyst at MoffettNathanson, told CNN Business. The world's changed. The question for Netflix, the once untouchable king streaming, has gone from what's next to what now? Now, as far as what Netflix is doing, they've become the linchpin of controversy, of course, but they are having a little bit more problems. And again, I don't know if this is because I actually got popped for a copyright hit or because they care more about it now than they did before. But I was able to, when we were talking about the closer, when we were talking about the Chappelle thing, play a clip of the Space Jews joke from Chappelle's special. The audio only, of course, because Netflix does block the video sharing on OBS and screen cap and everything else. They block all that. You can't do any of that. And they've actually got internal software to make sure that that happens that way. But I shared the audio from Chappelle's The Closer with no issue. But when we talked about Taylor Tomlinson from the Netflix special, Netflix made a copyright claim and blocked the video, the entire stream of Contemporary, over a minute clip of Taylor Tomlinson telling jokes. From their YouTube, by the way. Not from... the one we did with Chappelle, I took directly from Netflix. But what we launched with Taylor Tomlinson, we took from YouTube, which meant that it was marked safe for YouTube. But because it was Netflix's YouTube, apparently that must have been the difference there. But because of that, then yes, we got turned around and I got that one blocked. So there's that. The programming is not as woke as people say that it is, especially some of the ones that I watch. And the really woke ones I do avoid. Like I can tell what's woke and what isn't. And they've got woke stuff, and I avoid that. But they've got good stuff too, and I watch that. So they do have an open and full range of things that you can go back and see without having to immerse yourself in the woke stuff. It's not like every program that they put out is woke. That is an exaggeration. But they're going in, and it is, even with cuties out there, causing so many Christian conservatives to delete their Netflix accounts. It is the economy, stupid. Plain and simple, hard numbers, greenbacks, black and white. It's the economy. If you start jacking prices and taking away people's ability to share with their families, that's where you're going to start losing out on people. It's the economy, stupid. Especially at a point where the economy is going worse for people. If I was a streaming service right now, if I owned a streaming service and was reasonably successful from Netflix, and I saw the numbers that were coming out of inflation, if I saw the numbers that were coming out of consumer price index, and I saw the numbers of people who were losing their jobs, staying unemployed, I would get out onto the podium and make a statement and say, you know what? Our prices are frozen until inflation gets back under 3%. You can depend on us. It's the economy, stupid. From the Blaze, a little bit more Netflix, and then we've actually really got to get out of here. You know what? Yeah, let's do this one. Elon Musk diagnoses Netflix's big problem after the platform shed subscribers, stock tumbles. Woke mind virus. From Chris Enlow. Elon Musk, the world's richest man, diagnosed the disease that he believes is causing Netflix's foreboding financial woes. Netflix announced on Tuesday it experienced the first net loss of subscribers in more than a decade. During the first quarter of 2022, the streaming platform disclosed that 200,000 users dropped the service between January and March. The news caused shares of Netflix stocks to tumble more than 25%. CNBC reported Netflix previously told shareholders the company would experience net gain of 2.5 million subscribers in the first quarter of 2022. To make matters worse, Netflix is forecasting the loss of another 2 million subscribers in the second quarter of this year. The stock further cratered more than 30% as of Wednesday afternoon. Musk pointed to the woke ideology as the source of Netflix's subscriber and impending financial woes. Responding to news of the significant stock tumble, Musk said, "The woke mind virus is making Netflix unwatchable." In response, another Twitter user who said the woke mind virus is the biggest threat to civilization, Musk affirmed, "Yes. Indeed, Netflix has platformed provocatively progressive content. For example, Netflix hosts the show Dear White People, which is described as addressing the complexities of prejudice that take different forms, whether it's white or light-skinned privilege, sexism, or homophobia." Yes, they have. I don't deny that. But you know what? I don't watch it either. I don't like the lyrics, I can press fast forward. I can turn that knob. Not a physical knob, obviously, but I can turn that knob if I don't want to watch something like that. Because I can still go up and watch Larry the Cable Guy talk about how cold it is in Wisconsin, because that's apparently where his wife is from. Netflix is also scheduled to release a new show Thursday called He's Expecting. The show is centered around a pregnant male character. Netflix is also working with Kendi to adopt his anti-racist work into film projects, and the platform released a show about Colin Kaepernick last year. All things, again, I didn't watch. And it's the same thing. Cuties. Didn't watch it. Criticized the controversy. Didn't watch it. Big Mouth. Watched a season of it. Realized it was grooming. Stopped watching it. But, furthermore, off of Netflix, and this is the important part to watch with this, a lot of the big names that are holding it back up, or that were holding it back up, are fleeing. When I watched the second Star Wars movie from the new trilogy, I don't remember which one that was. Not Force Awakens, the one after that. Last Jedi. I watched Last Jedi on Netflix. Actually, I had watched Phantom Menace on Netflix too, because all the Star Wars movies were there. I've watched Doctor Strange on Netflix, because it was there. Well, all those movies I just mentioned are now on Disney Plus, which my sister pays for. I can't tell you how much Trek I have watched on Netflix. It is now on Paramount Plus, which I have. In fact, I think Deep Space Nine is the last one that's going to be holding out on Netflix for a little while longer. But as soon as that contract ups, I guarantee Paramount's going to snap that one up too, because it's a CBS property. And that one's going to be gone too. With the exception of the original series, I think I've watched every Star Trek series in existence on Netflix. That's not true, because they have Discovery, Picard, and Lower Decks, which never made it to Netflix. The problem is that they don't have the content anymore. And they're trying to make everything more expensive. Those are the big problems. They're trying to make everything more expensive, and they don't have the content. It's not the woke mind virus. Yes, there are people that don't support that. There are people that say, I can't have my money going towards that. Yes, there is an avenue of people like that, but there are an avenue of people out there that also know that, hey, if I want to watch this content, it's here. I can pay the money for it and ignore the stuff that I don't like. I can't sit and watch everything on Netflix every day anyway. But that is how that goes. That is already after 9:30. So let's grab these couple tweets here. We'll do a thing I like and thing that I hate and head out of here for the day. All right, this one here was just funny. We're not going anywhere at Starbucks. Literally, we've superglued ourselves to your counter. With a shirt that says, not your mom, not your milk. And vegan milk upcharge, because apparently they're protesting the fact that if you go to Starbucks and you order vegan milk, there's an upcharge. Now, personally, I would have stopped going to Starbucks long, long ago because they suck. Their coffee tastes like shit. It's over expensive. And I don't support their wokeism either. But I guess my first question that I have to ask of this guy here, who has felt the need to go and glue himself to the counter, is Mr. PETA guy, Mr. Animal Rights Activist. Where does glue come from? No, seriously, where does glue come from? That's going to hurt like hell once they do get finally drug off of there because the store's got to close. And they're trespassing. That's going to hurt like hell. How is glue made, PETA? And the red-haired bobblehead as well. Greg Price tweets out, red-haired bobblehead literally breaks down in tears over state laws that ban children from undergoing sex changes. Let's listen.
The political games and harsh and cruel attempts at laws that we're seeing in some states like Florida, that is not a reflection of the country moving to oppose LGBTQ plus communities. That is not what we see in data. That is not factual. And that is not where things stand. This is a political wedge issue and an attempt to win a culture war. And they're doing that in a way that is harsh and cruel to a community of kids, especially. I'm like going to get emotional about this issue because it's horrible. But you know, it's like kids who are bullied, and like all these leaders are taking steps to hurt them and hurt their lives and hurt their families. And you look at some of these laws in these states, and it is going after parents who are in loving relationships, who have kids. It's completely outrageous. But it is a wedge issue. Sorry. This is an issue that makes me completely crazy. But it is an issue that is a political wedge issue. It is not a reflection of where the country is.
Wow. I haven't seen that much overacting since the last time I watched, William Shatner on the original series of Star Trek. I haven't seen that much overacting from a politician since Cory Booker. Man, that was better. I should have led with that one first.
The political...
Can someone please ask her to quote the parts of the law she claims are hurting children? The existence of the law, of course, that's hurting children. All right. And with that, I think we're done. We'll save this Daily Wire one until tomorrow. Because this is on the religious healthcare workers rules, which I think is important to come back out and see. And let's start with let's finish out with a thing that I like and a thing that I hate, head out of here for the day. So, speaking of streaming, we're doing another thing that I like segment on what I'm streaming right now. And I've gone back, and I've seen this before. I actually have. But I have gone back through, decided that I wanted to go back and watch Next Generation again. Now that I've seen more of this, now that I understand more of the Trek culture, I want to see how much of this stands up. How much has been shifted. Because that was a lot of the thing with Next Generation is nobody really knew where the Star Trek thing was going to go on its second one. The first show got canceled after 5 seasons. And many, many years later, after demand, because of a fairly successful movie franchise, Roddenberry decided he wanted to take another go at it. And the result turned out to be arguably more cultish, more fan-followed, more intriguing than the original series itself, which already itself had a major cult following going around it. So I decided to go back this past and look at the Next Generation, and well, I guess the first thing I'd say is, man, all that 80s hair, all that hairspray that's on that set. It's a wonder we have an ozone layer left with all that CFC hairspray that was on that set. But looking back at the culture and looking at some of the stuff, it really holds up. And it, as communistic as Roddenberry was, you can really look and see where some of the things were starting to break out of this. You know, they're talking about buying drinks in spite of the fact that they live in a cashless society. You do have to go into Next Generation knowing what you're getting into. The idealistic communistic society where Picard is coming out to try to tell the Q that they are ready to go out and explore the galaxy, in spite of the fact that they really weren't. It is not as gritty as Picard. It's not as gritty as even Deep Space Nine was, but it still holds up. To a transition between what real world was and what Roddenberry was trying to make the world into what it was, and also laying a lot of the groundwork and a lot of the rules for some of the better series that came after that. They all trace their roots back into rules that were put into place during the Next Generation. Original series was in a class of its own, in a world of its own, because it was still Wild West. Yes, they had the Prime Directive, but they played jump rope with that fucking thing in the original series. Whereas Next Generation, things became more rigid. And really the Starfleet was the police force. And the rules that came down, the rules that governed the conflict in Deep Space Nine and Voyager to an extent for itself. And even later series like Discovery, Enterprise, Picard. The conflicts that they had to go through trying to go through the idealistic society that they're trying to adhere to because that's what Gene Roddenberry wanted versus what actually happens in real life. All that came down to sets of rules that were brought forward from the Next Generation. And really, honestly, this trailer that we're about to watch is about the most 80s thing that you will ever see in your life. So let's sit down and watch the trailer, the original trailer from 1986 of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Star Trek: The Next Generation is beaming aboard the airwaves. All the wonder, the excitement, the drama of Gene Roddenberry's original Space Odyssey.
Welcome to the Enterprise.
With all new adventures from the 24th century. With an all-new Enterprise.
This is nothing like any vessel I've seen before.
And an all-new crew. Starfleet veteran Captain Picard, Commander Riker, Executive Officer, Chief Medical Officer Crusher, and her brilliant son, Wesley, Lieutenant Commander Data, an android, the telepathic Troy, Security Officer Yar, Geordi, a man with unique vision, and Klingon Officer Worf.
Shields and deflectors up, sir.
Go to yellow alert.
Their continuing mission to boldly go where no one has gone before.
Let's see what's out there.
Don't miss the all-new television adventures of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
So, and one of the things that I really, really liked about this is they're still doing exploration, but it's more societal exploration. I just watched one of my favorite episodes of The Next Generation, Measure of a Man. That was probably one of the best written and the best concepted episodes of the entire series. To decide whether Commander Data, sentient, but an android still, was legally allowed to be conferred the rights of a human being, or humanoid in in this case, because there's so many other species that are involved in all this. And the argument for having him conveyed his rights to invoke slavery, to invoke creating a new race, to subjugate them. Everything that was done with that was spot on. And again, in spite of the fact that I don't necessarily enjoy some of the cashless society, you will own nothing and you will enjoy it aspects of Roddenberry's idealistic society, just the exploration into philosophical ideals of this. I really enjoy Next Generation. And again, going into it, having seen Voyager and Deep Space Nine, the series that came out after Roddenberry's death, and knowing what I knew about Roddenberry, I didn't think I was going to enjoy the series. But I did the first time, and I'm enjoying it even more the second time. So if you haven't seen Next Generation, which I guarantee most of you have, definitely recommend it. It's not as commie as you think. Yes, it's still there, but it's not as commie as you think. All right, now for a thing that I hate. Reading from the Daily Wire today to finish out the thing that I hate today. Former Bush Cheney advisor, Jesus Christ would be called a groomer if he was alive today. Quick, somebody get this article over to Stephen Ignoramus because I want to see what he has to say about this. But, I can't believe the bedfellows that a populist movement has made in this country. From Virginia Kruta. It is on Netflix still, MK Ultra, but it's on Netflix for like 4 more days. It's on Paramount now. Paramount picked up all the Star Trek. All right, from the Daily Wire, former Bush Cheney advisor, Jesus Christ would be called a groomer if he was alive today, from Virginia Kruta. Matthew Dowd claimed Wednesday that if Jesus Christ were still living, people might call him a groomer. Dowd, who served as a top advisor for former President George W. Bush, and his Vice President Cheney during the 2004 presidential campaign, made the comments during an appearance on MSDNC's Deadline White House. Why a Bushite is on MSDNC, that in and of itself should be enough to worry you about the direction that the establishment and the top-line neocon Republicans want this country to go into. Let's listen, because this is disgusting.
Did it over the Easter holidays. And the Easter holidays, the entire message of the Gospels of the Easter holidays was love one another. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If Jesus Christ was alive today, he would be called a groomer, he would be called woke, and he would be called a socialist if he was alive today. If he was speaking the message he spoke in the Gospels today about treating everybody with dignity, Jesus Christ hung around with prostitutes and tax collectors. He was nailed to a cross because he spoke on behalf of the most marginalized people in the Middle East.
That is somebody who's never read the Bible in his life.
And the idea that certain segment of our population has tried to capture the faith and corrupt a message that I may have been a follower of since I was baptized and was confirmed and served on the altar in the course of this is something I think all of us, it's not just people of faith, but all of us.
He'd be called woke. He'd be called a socialist. For his message of love one another, he'd be called a groomer. Now, first and foremost, there is nothing in the message of Christ that would involve him being called a groomer. I can't believe a bolt of lightning didn't hit that guy while he was out there making that outrageous statement. But it's the constant argument. Jesus is whatever my ideology wants him to be. And I have tried to avoid trying to shape Christ into my ideology. Because he is of his own ideology completely. And for the most part, from what I've seen, basing what's in the Bible versus basing what people try to shape him into, nobody's got it right yet. But Christ was, yes, he was, love one another. But he also pointed out that the wages for sin were death. Christ himself was more fire and brimstone, but they leave those passages out when they go back and talk about this. There are cases where he was more conservative than many of today's modern conservatives. But this is a constant thing over and over again. As people go through and they find passage here, passage A, passage B, passage C, to try to make Christ fit into their little worldview. We get shit like this over and over again. So, this was disgusting. I hate everything about this. And of course, it had to come from a Bushite. But with that, Jesus, it's 10 already. I gotta get the hell out of here. Let's get some outro music up and let's go. So, now that we're on a very truncated time schedule here, let's get out of here for the day. Thanks everybody who came by and chatted with us in the live chat, came by and kept us on point. Ron Helton, MK Ultra, KTZed, the people that were lurking that didn't get numbers in here. Definitely come back here tomorrow. We'll be talking more about this. Plus, it's Thursday already, so we'll be doing live chat tomorrow too. So definitely come back, hang out with us today. I got to make sure to get the names written down of everybody here because we give a special thank you to everybody who chatted in the live chat throughout the day, and we will read some of your live chat here tomorrow as well. So definitely looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing everybody here. What kind of stuff you have to come up with. Remember, if it is sufficiently stupid, bigoted, hateful, or, well, stupid, bigoted, or hateful, it will be read on the air and be, it'll raise the intellectual level of this program. Also, join us on Saturday for talking about the fall of Anakin Skywalker with John from the Generational Gap and taking live chat too. That's going to be a fun time. Looking forward to that. That is at 5:30 Central Time. Here on this channel again, we'll be making an announcement. And by the way, we'll be making an announcement tomorrow too about new content, where new places you can find what it is that we see here, what we talk about here. So definitely looking forward to that. Getting some more written stuff out there as well. We will see you here tomorrow for more Contemporary. Stick around if you are on Twitch. We are going to go rating. And we will see you next time over here on Contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar. And this is Contemporary. Take care.